117 children. That's how many have been found alive, a decade or more after they vanished. And for one father, the proof that his daughter was among them wasn't a DNA match or a detective's call. It was a child's drawing, taped to a waitress's fridge in a diner he'd never visited before. This is the story of Michael Chen, a man whose 3-year-old daughter Lily disappeared from a playground 7 years ago. In that time, over 349,000 other missing child reports have been filed, but Michael never stopped looking, clinging to a single strange piece of evidence, his daughter's unique drawing of a sunflower cat. So when he saw it again, flawless and unchanged, on a refrigerator 800 miles from home, one terrifying question remained. Was this finally the break in the case, or the cruelest coincidence a grieving father could ever face? 7 years ago, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the world ended for Michael Chen. He turned his back for 20 seconds to help another child tie a shoe. When he looked up, his 3-year-old daughter Lily was gone from the sandbox. The park was small, fenced. She couldn't have just wandered off. The first hour was a blur of screaming her name, of other parents joining the search, of a phone call to 911 that made his hands shake so badly he dropped the phone twice. The police arrived quickly. They treated it with a seriousness that chilled him. This wasn't a lost child scenario. This was a potential abduction, and in abduction cases, time is measured in minutes, not hours. The statistics are brutal. A child taken for sexual assault is usually assaulted within the first hour of being taken. The Amber Alert went out within 45 minutes. Helicopters with thermal cameras were over the park within 2 hours. They found nothing. No sign of Lily, no suspicious vehicles on traffic cameras, no witnesses who saw anything out of the ordinary. It was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed her whole. For the first year, Michael lived in a state of suspended animation. His marriage to Lily's mother, Sarah, collapsed under the weight of shared grief and unspoken blame. He quit his job as an architect. His life narrowed to a single purpose: find Lily. He became an expert in missing persons databases, in volunteer search groups, in the frustratingly slow grind of a cold case. The lead detective, a weary man named Garcia, told him the hard truth: most missing children are found quickly or not at all. After the first 48 hours, the odds drop precipitously. After the first year, they become a statistic. But Michael clung to one piece of evidence that felt uniquely, personally hers: the sunflower cat. The morning she disappeared, Lily had been drawing at the kitchen table. She created a hybrid creature with the round, smiling face of a sunflower, but with whiskers, pointy ears, and a long, curling tail. She called it her sunflower cat. It was bizarre and detailed for a 3-year-old. She'd even given it a specific pattern of 7 spots on its tail. Michael had photographed it on his phone. That drawing became his holy grail. He printed it on flyers, posted it online, showed it to every psychic and retired detective and true crime podcast host who would listen. It was more than a clue, it was her signature. Years passed. The active investigation faded. Detective Garcia retired. The case file grew dusty, but Michael developed a ritual. Every morning he'd check the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website. Every Sunday he'd visit online forums dedicated to long-term missing persons. He'd search for any mention of a found child matching Lily's description, now aged up. He'd look at the age-progressed photos forensic artists created, but they never looked like his little girl to him. The psychological toll was exactly what the research warned about: complicated grief, a permanent state of traumatic stress. His mind became a trapdoor, ready to fall into the abyss at the sound of a child's laugh or the sight of a yellow sundress. He existed in 2 timelines, the one where Lily was still 3 and missing, and the one where she might be 10, living a life he couldn't imagine. Hope wasn't a comfort, it was a torture device. Then last Tuesday, business finally forced him to travel. A former client 800 miles away in a sleepy riverside town needed a consultant on a project. Michael almost refused. Leaving his home city felt like abandoning his post, but the money was significant and his savings were gone. The drive was a haze of highway monotony. He arrived in the town of Cedar Bend exhausted and hollow. He checked into a generic motel and, too tired for the hotel restaurant, went looking for a real meal. That's how he found the River's Edge Diner. It was all chrome and vinyl, the kind of place that smelled of coffee and grilled onions. He took a counter seat. A waitress named Rebecca with a kind smile and tired eyes took his order. He wasn't paying attention to his surroundings. He was just trying to eat, to fuel a body he mostly resented for continuing to function without his daughter. But then he went to ask for more coffee. Rebecca was at the end of the counter, grabbing something from a small, humming personal fridge tucked beneath the register. The door swung open, and there, held by a strawberry-shaped magnet, was a drawing, a child's drawing in crayon. It was a sunflower with a cat's face, whiskers, pointy ears, a long tail with 7 distinct spots. The sunflower cat. His vision tunneled. The diner sounds, the clatter of plates, the murmur of conversation faded into a high-pitched whine. Time didn't just stop, it snapped backward 7 years to his kitchen table. The drawing was identical, not similar, identical. The same uneven circle for the face, the same way she drew the petals like rays, the same specific count of spots. A 3-year-old's drawing does not get reproduced a decade later by coincidence. The odds were astronomical. His coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the linoleum. Rebecca jumped, turning toward the sound. Their eyes met. She saw his face, a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. He was staring not at her but at her fridge door. She followed his gaze to the drawing, and her expression shifted from concern to confusion, then to something else. Something guarded, something like fear. That look on Rebecca's face, it wasn't just confusion. It was recognition. She knew that drawing meant something. And in that split second, 7 years of investigative instinct overrode Michael's shock. He didn't lunge, he didn't shout. He took a breath that felt like shards of glass in his lungs, and he forced his voice into something calm, something non-threatening. "I'm so sorry about the cup," he said, his words careful, measured. "That drawing on your fridge, my daughter used to draw one just like it." Rebecca's eyes flickered from his face to the drawing and back. She took a step back, putting the counter between them. It's just a kid's drawing. My niece made it." "Your niece?" Michael's heart was a jackhammer against his ribs. "How old is she?" "She's 10. The answer came too fast, defensive. 10, Lily would be 10. The math was perfect. He kept his hands visible on the counter, his posture open. "It's incredible. The resemblance it's uncanny. What's her name?" "Sophie." Rebecca was already reaching for the drawing, peeling the magnet off. "Look, I have to get back to work." "Please, wait." The plea escaped raw and real. "My daughter Lily, she disappeared 7 years ago. She was 3. She drew that exact picture, Rebecca. The same sunflower face, the same 7 spots on the tail. I have a photo of it on my phone. May I show you?" Rebecca froze, the drawing halfway to drawer under the register. Her knuckles were white. She looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the agony he couldn't hide. Something in her professional mask cracked, not with guilt, but with a dawning, horrified understanding. You think Sophie is your daughter?" "I don't know what to think. I just know that drawing is a 1 in a billion coincidence. Please, let me show you the photo. Then you can call the police, you can do whatever you need to do. I just need you to see it." Slowly, she nodded. Michael's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone, scrolled through the ancient album marked Lily, and found the picture. The morning light in his old kitchen, the crayon on construction paper. He turned the screen toward her. Rebecca's breath caught. She leaned in, her eyes widening. My God. It was identical, not just the concept. The line work, the proportions, the peculiar way the tail curled into a perfect spiral at the end. It was a duplicate. "Where is Sophie right now?" Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. "She's at home with my sister Mara." Rebecca's own voice was shaky. "Mara's her mom, I'm just the aunt." "And your sister, where did she get Sophie?" "What do you mean, where did she get her? She's her daughter." But the conviction in Rebecca's voice was fraying. She was putting pieces together in her own mind, and the picture was terrifying her. Was it an adoption, a foster situation? Michael pressed gently, every word a calculated risk. 7 years ago. Rebecca closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were glistening. "Mara moved here about 6.5 years ago. She was in a bad place. She came to stay with me. She showed up with Sophie, said she needed a fresh start, that the father was out of the picture. We never asked too many questions. Sophie was her little girl. She's a good mom." 6.5 years ago, a few months after Lily vanished, a mother with a 3-year-old fleeing, needing a fresh start. "I need to talk to your sister," Michael said. "You can't." Rebecca's fear was back, sharp and protective. "If you're right, if this is what it looks like, Mara would never let you near her. She's protective. Rebecca trailed off, but the unspoken words hung in the air. "She's scared of something." Michael made a decision. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a faded business card from Detective Garcia and a $20 bill for the broken cup and the uneaten food. He slid them both across the counter. "My name is Michael Chen. That's the card for the detective who handled my daughter's case. He's retired, but he'll vouch for me. Please talk to your sister, show her the photo, and then please call me." He wrote his cell number on a napkin. "I'm staying at the motel by the highway. I'm not going anywhere." He left before she could refuse. The cool night air hit him like a physical blow. He stumbled to his rental car, sat behind the wheel, and for the first time in 7 years he sobbed. Not the silent tears of grief, but great, heaving sobs of a hope so violent it felt like it was tearing him apart. Sophie, a 10-year-old girl named Sophie. But the investigator in his mind was already running scenarios. If Mara had taken Lily, she wasn't a random predator. This was a woman who had raised a child for 7 years, a woman with a sister who loved her. This was messy, this was personal, and it was far more dangerous. Back at the motel, he couldn't sleep. He pulled out his laptop and did what he'd done 1,000 times before. He began to dig. He started with Mara. Rebecca had given no last name, but Cedar Bend was small. He searched local property records, social media, anything. After 2 hours, he found her. Mara Wilson, a waitress at a different diner across town. A few grainy Facebook photos, a woman with a wary smile and a dark-haired, smiling girl who made Michael's heart stop. The girl's face, there was something in the shape of the eyes, the set of her mouth. It was like looking at a ghost of his own family photos. He enlarged the pictures until they pixelated. He studied the background of one taken in what looked like a small living room. On a bookshelf, barely visible, was a framed photograph. He couldn't make it out. He tried a reverse image search on the girl's photo. Nothing. He was in the dark. At 3 in the morning, his phone buzzed. An unknown local number. He answered, his mouth dry. Hello. It was Rebecca. She sounded exhausted, frightened. I talked to her. I showed her the picture. And she freaked out. I mean, really freaked out. She took Sophie and left. She wouldn't tell me where she was going. She said you were lying, that you were sent by him. By who? Michael sat bolt upright. Who is him? She wouldn't say, just him. She said she knew this would happen one day. She told me to never contact her again and to forget I ever knew you. Rebecca was crying now. Michael, I've known my sister my whole life. That wasn't anger. That was pure, absolute terror. Whoever she's running from, she thinks you work for him. The narrative pivoted violently. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This was a woman on the run, hiding a child from someone powerful, someone she was still afraid of 7 years later. Was Mara a victim who took a child, or was she something else? Do you have any idea who she might be afraid of? An ex-boyfriend, someone from her past? She never talked about Sophie's father, ever. It was the one rule we didn't ask. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. But there's something else. About a year after she moved here, a man came around asking questions. He was polite, well-dressed, said he was from a family law firm looking for a Mara Wilson about a potential inheritance. Mara hid in my back room for 2 days. She made me tell him she'd moved away. A man looking for her, a year after she arrived. That timing lined up with the point when a standard police search would have gone cold, when a private, determined party might take over. Michael's mind raced. What if Lily's disappearance wasn't random? What if she was taken not by a stranger but by someone connected, a non-custodial parent, a relative? The police had explored that angle early on and dismissed it. Lily's mother, Sarah, had no family to speak of. Michael's own family was in Taiwan. There was no bitter custody battle, no shady uncle. But what if they'd missed something? What if it was someone from Sarah's past she'd never disclosed, or someone from his own? Rebecca, I need you to think. Did Mara ever get mail from somewhere else? Did she have an accent? Any papers for Sophie? Birth certificate, social security card? She had a birth certificate for Sophie. I saw it once when she was enrolling her in school. It looked normal. Place of birth was listed as St. Mary's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Michael immediately wrote that down. Columbus, hundreds of miles from where Lily was taken and from Cedar Bend, a perfect midpoint location. He could check hospital records, but he knew what he'd find. If the certificate was forged, it would be a good forgery, the kind that costs real money. The pieces were forming a new, darker picture, an organized taking, false documents, a mother living in fear. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, it was a planned relocation, and that meant the person behind it had resources, and if they were still looking, they were relentless. Thank you, Rebecca, you've been incredibly brave. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to find out who him is, Michael said, his voice cold with a new kind of determination. The grieving father was receding, the hunter was taking over. And then I'm going to find your sister and Sophie before he does. He hung up and immediately placed another call. It rang 5 times before a gruff, sleep-thickened voice answered. Garcia. Detective, it's Michael Chen. I found her. I think I found Lily. The line was silent for a full 10 seconds. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. Michael talked for 20 minutes, laying out everything from the diner to the sunflower cat to Mara Wilson's terror. Garcia listened without interruption. When Michael finished, the old detective let out a long, low whistle. You've stepped in it, kid. This smells professional. The fake birth certificate, the timing, the sustained fear. This isn't some deadbeat dad. This is either a parental figure with serious money and connections or something worse. What could be worse? Michael asked, though he dreaded the answer. Child procurement for adoption, a black market network. It happens. A child is taken to order, given new papers, and sold to a couple desperate for a baby. But those kids are usually younger. At 3, Lily would have been old enough to remember unless they were convinced she was someone else. Garcia paused. Or it's someone with a more personal motive, someone who wanted that specific child removed from her life and placed in another. You need to look at your own life, Michael. Who stood to gain if you fell apart? Who recentered your family? Was there any money, any inheritance? Michael's blood ran cold. He had been so focused on external monsters he never looked inward. His parents were deceased. He was an only child. There was a modest life insurance policy, nothing worth this. But Sarah's family, her father had been against the marriage. He'd cut her off. He was a wealthy, controlling man. He'd never even acknowledged Lily's birth. Sarah's father, Michael whispered. Now we're talking, Garcia said, suddenly alert. Tell me about him. Arthur Whitmore, Sarah's father, a name Michael hadn't spoken in years, a man of old money and colder demeanor who'd viewed his daughter's marriage to a first-generation immigrant as a social disease. Garcia's question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Who stood to gain? He disowned her, Michael said, the memory bitter. When she married me, when Lily was born, he sent a check. No card. Sarah sent it back. He never met his granddaughter. He wanted her erased. And after she disappeared, Garcia pressed, what did he do? Michael's mind raced back. He called. Once he told Sarah it was tragic, but that maybe it was for the best, given the unstable environment. He offered to pay for her to get professional help and to move back home. She hung up on him. We never heard from him again. An unstable environment, Garcia repeated slowly. Meaning you, he blamed you. And then he offered to rescue his daughter from you, but only if she left you behind. And when she refused, what if he decided to remove the reason she was staying? The theory was monstrous. A grandfather orchestrating the kidnapping of his own granddaughter to break up his daughter's marriage. It seemed both too simple and too insane, but it fit the profile of a controlling, vindictive man with the resources to make people disappear. We need to look at him, Garcia said, his voice all business now. But we do it quiet. You don't call Sarah yet. If he's behind this and he hears you're asking questions, he'll bury any evidence deeper or worse. I still have friends. Let me make some calls. Over the next 24 hours, a shadow investigation took shape. Garcia, working from his home computer, tapped into old networks. He called in favors from a forensic accountant he knew, a woman who could follow money through a maze of shell companies. Michael's role was to watch Mara Wilson's last known address, a small, shabby apartment building, and to wait. He sat in his car down the block, a ball of nervous energy. He saw no sign of Mara or Sophie. The apartment looked dark, deserted. He thought about the terrified woman fleeing with a child who might not even know she was stolen. He thought about Sophie living a lie for 7 years. The psychological damage of that kind of revelation, according to every study on recovered missing children, could be profound. PTSD, anxiety, a shattered sense of identity. The reunion he'd dreamed of for years was now a potential minefield. His phone buzzed. Garcia. We got a hit, the detective said, no greeting. Arthur Whitmore. 6 months before Lily vanished, he incorporated a limited liability company called AW Family Services, listed as a charitable foundation for family reconciliation. A shell company, Michael whispered. Bingo and AW Family Services made a single sizable payment of $250,000 to another LLC, Midwest Adoption Facilitators, 3 weeks after Lily disappeared. The room seemed to tilt, the money trail, payment after the fact for services rendered. Midwest Adoption Facilitators, Michael repeated, the name tasting like ash. Dissolved 2 years ago, but my accountant friend dug deeper. The principal was a guy named Roland Vick. He has a sheet. Fraud, impersonation, a dismissed charge for conspiracy to commit kidnapping that never stuck. He's a fixer. For the right price, he fixes family problems. Michael's hand clenched around the phone. So Whitmore hires Vic. Vic takes Lily, but he doesn't harm her. He places her with Mara. Why not just? He couldn't finish the sentence. Because a dead child is a permanent problem. A missing child is an open wound that never heals. But a relocated child given to another woman to raise, that serves 2 purposes. It punishes you by taking your daughter, and it gives Sarah reason to eventually come crawling back to daddy, broken and alone. It's psychological warfare, and it gets worse. How could it possibly get worse? Because Vic didn't just make Mara a babysitter. We found a record. A birth certificate was filed in Columbus, Ohio for a Sophie Wilson, mother listed as Mara Wilson. It's a forgery, but a damn good one, filed through a corrupt clerk who's since retired. And get this, the filing was paid for by a retainer from a law firm that does occasional work for Arthur Whitmore's real estate holdings. The web was intricate, professional. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a cold, calculated restructuring of lives. So Mara, Michael said, piecing it together. She's not a monster, she's a pawn. Vic finds a vulnerable woman, maybe one who lost a child or who desperately wanted one. He gives her a beautiful little girl and a new identity. He tells her the father is dangerous, that they have to hide. She becomes the perfect guardian because her love is real and her fear is real. Exactly, and she's been looking over her shoulder for 7 years, not just from the law but from the man who gave her the child, Vic, or whoever Vic answers to. When you showed up, she didn't think birth father. She thought enforcer. She thinks you're here to take Sophie back to the monster. The tragic irony was almost too much to bear. Mara was hiding Lily from him, to protect her from him, because of a story spun by the man who actually stole her. We have to find her before Vic does, Michael said. If Whitmore gets wind that the placement is compromised, that his secret is about to blow, his next call won't be to reunite anyone. It'll be to clean up the mess, permanently. Agreed, which is why you need to get out of that town. Now, if Vic has any eyes on Mara's known associates, he'll know her sister talked to a stranger. Your motel is the first place they'll look. A chill ran down Michael's spine. He looked in his rearview mirror. The quiet street seemed to hold its breath. Was that sedan at the end of the block new? He couldn't remember. Where do I go? Drive, just drive, head south. I'm texting you an address for a motel 2 counties over. Pay cash. I'm going to reach out to an old contact in the state police, someone I trust. We need to get Mara and Sophie into protective custody before this explodes. Michael started the car and pulled away from the curb, forcing himself not to speed. As he drove, his mind churned. He had a name, Arthur Whitmore. He had a mechanism, Roland Vick. He had a motive, cruel, twisted, but a motive. It was more than he'd had in 7 years, but it was also a ticking clock. He reached the new motel, a rundown place on a forgotten highway. He paid cash for a room as a light rain began to fall. He was exhausted but wired. He called Rebecca. It went straight to voicemail. He texted her, "Are you okay? Please let me know you're safe." No reply. The silence was ominous. Had something happened, or had she simply decided to cut all ties? The next morning, Garcia called again. His voice was tight, urgent. State police are on board. They're putting out a discreet bolo for Mara and Sophie Wilson, citing a child welfare concern. No mention of you or the kidnapping. But Michael, I dug deeper into Vic. The man's a ghost, but I found a connection you need to sit down for. I'm sitting. Roland Vick. Before he was a fixer, he was a private military contractor. Did security for wealthy clients in unstable regions. And one of his longest-standing clients back in the day was the Whitmore family's import-export firm. He was Arthur Whitmore's personal security detail for 3 years in the 90s. The connection was direct, not just through shell companies but personal loyalty. Vic wasn't just a hired gun, he was a former employee, a trusted one. So when Arthur needed a very sensitive, very illegal problem solved, he called his old reliable, Michael said, the final piece clicking into place with dreadful certainty. Exactly, and that means Vic isn't just some mercenary, he's a true believer. He'll protect Whitmore at all costs. Which is why we can't just go after Whitmore legally yet. We need Sophie first. She's the key. Her DNA is the proof that breaks everything open. Michael thought of the 10-year-old girl, living her life, utterly unaware she was the linchpin in a 7-year-old conspiracy. The weight of it was crushing. There's more, Garcia said, his tone grave. I had a friend run financials on Mara Wilson. For the first 2 years she was in Cedar Bend, she received monthly deposits into a closed bank account. Small amounts, just enough to live on. They came from a trust fund. The beneficiary of that trust, Arthur Whitmore's AW Family Services. He was paying her to raise his granddaughter. Michael felt sick. It was all so calculated. Whitmore wasn't just discarding Lily. He was funding her new life, ensuring she was cared for, all while her real father grieved and her mother shattered. It was the ultimate act of control, of ownership. He was keeping her in reserve, Michael realized aloud, like an asset, in case Sarah ever broke. Then he could produce the granddaughter, alive and well, and be the hero who found her. He'd get his daughter back and you'd be the failed father forever. It was a long game. The sheer patient cruelty of it took Michael's breath away. This wasn't just a crime. It was a life stolen, a family destroyed, all to win a warped argument with his daughter. His phone beeped with another call, an unknown number. His heart leapt. Garcia, hold on, I've got another call. He switched lines. Hello. It was Rebecca. She was crying, her words rushed and panicked. Michael, he found her, he found Mara. Who found her? Vic. I don't know a name, a man. He called me. He told me he knew I'd spoken to you. He said if I ever wanted to see my sister or Sophie again, I'd tell him where you are right now. He said you took something that belongs to Mr. Whitmore and it's time to give it back. The threat was clear. They had Mara and Sophie, and they were using them as bait for him. Rebecca, listen to me. Do not tell him anything. Do you know where they are? No, he just said he has them. He said you have until sunset to turn yourself in at the old river mill on County Road 9, or he starts sending pieces of them to you. The line went dead. Michael switched back to Garcia, his blood roaring in his ears. They have them. They're using them as leverage for me. Sunset at the river mill. Garcia cursed. It's a trap. You walk in there, you disappear, they disappear. Case closed. I know it's a trap, Michael shouted, the frustration and fear erupting. But I can't leave them. She's my daughter, Garcia, and Mara, she's just another victim in this. I know, okay, listen. Sunset gives us time, my state police contact. We can mobilize, we can surround that mill, but we need to move now and we need to move smart. You cannot go in there alone. Michael looked out the motel window at the grey sky. The rain had settled into a steady drizzle. Somewhere out there, his daughter was being held by a ruthless man who had already stolen 7 years of her life. And her only other protector, a woman who loved her, was a hostage too. The grieving father was gone, the hunter was gone. Now there was only a soldier gearing up for a rescue mission. "Tell me the plan," Michael said, his voice cold and clear, "and tell me what I need to do to get my daughter back." The old river mill was a skeleton of industry, its brick walls crumbling into the churning water below. As Michael approached with a team of state police tacticians moving silently through the surrounding woods, every second felt like a lifetime. Vic wasn't just a hired gun, he was a professional who'd survived war zones. This wasn't a negotiation, it was an extraction under fire. Garcia's plan was simple in theory. Michael would present himself as the sole, desperate father at the main entrance, drawing Vic's attention. The police would secure the perimeter and move in from the river side and rear. The goal wasn't to arrest Vic on the spot. It was to get Mara and Sophie out alive. Everything else was secondary. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as he stepped into the mill's vast, shadowy main floor. Dust motes danced in the slivers of fading sunset light. "Vic, I'm here, let them go." Silence, then the scrape of a boot on concrete. Roland Vic stepped from behind a massive, rusted gear. He was exactly what Michael had pictured, mid-50s, military posture, eyes that held no emotion. He held a pistol loosely at his side. "Mr. Chen, you took something that doesn't belong to you." "She's my daughter." "She's a problem that was solved," Vic said flatly. "A problem your wife's father paid handsomely to have resolved. You were supposed to break, you were supposed to let go. Persistent bastard, aren't you?" "Where are they?" Michael demanded, his eyes scanning the shadows. Vic gestured with his chin toward a rickety metal staircase leading to an upper catwalk. "Up there, safe, for now. Mr. Whitmore has decided the original solution is compromised. A new one is required." That was the signal. Compromised meant disposable. Michael's blood ran cold. He gave the slightest nod, a prearranged signal to the police sniper positioned outside a broken window. Everything happened at once. A flashbang grenade detonated near the rear entrance with a deafening crack and blinding light. Shouts of police, down on the ground, echoed. Vic, momentarily disoriented, swung his pistol toward the noise. It was the split second Michael needed. He didn't charge. He dove behind the rusted gear as Vic fired twice, the bullets pinging off metal. The tactical team poured in. Gunfire erupted, short, controlled bursts. Michael's world narrowed to the metal staircase. He scrambled for it, ignoring the firefight, his only goal the upper level. He took the steps 2 at a time. The catwalk was a narrow platform overlooking the main floor. And there, huddled in a corner, was Mara Wilson, her arms wrapped tightly around a sobbing girl. "Sophie, Lily." Michael froze 5 feet away. The girl looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with a terror he recognized. They were Sarah's eyes, his mother's chin. She was a living blend of his past, a ghost given flesh. "Don't come closer," Mara screamed, shielding the girl with her body. "I won't let you take her back to him." "Mara, listen to me," Michael said, his voice shaking but clear. He slowly knelt, making himself small, non-threatening. "My name is Michael. That man downstairs, Vic, he works for my daughter's grandfather. He stole Lily from me 7 years ago. He gave her to you and told you a story to make you hide. He told you I was the monster, but he's the monster. Look at what he's doing right now." From below, the sounds of the struggle continued. A man cried out in pain. Mara stared at him, her own fear warring with 7 years of programmed suspicion. The little girl, Sophie, Lily, peeked out from behind her. You're the man from the diner," Mara whispered. "Rebecca showed me the picture, the sunflower cat." "My Lily drew that the morning she was taken," Michael said, tears finally spilling over. "She called it her sunflower cat. She gave it 7 spots on the tail because she was 3, and 3 was her favorite number, plus 4 for the cat's legs. She had a logic all her own. The detail was too specific, too intimate to be fabricated." Mara's rigid posture faltered. The little girl spoke, her voice small. "I draw that, my sunny cat. How do you know about my sunny cat?" Michael's breath hitched. "Because a long time ago when you were very little, you showed it to me. In our kitchen, you called it that, your sunny cat." The psychological wall Mara had built began to crumble. The love she had for this child, a love used as a weapon against her, now faced its truth. He said her father was dangerous, that he'd hurt her, that we had to disappear. He lied. I have spent every day of the last 7 years looking for her. I love her. Please, let me protect her from him. Downstairs, the gunfire stopped. A voice echoed up, clear, suspect in custody. Mara looked at the girl, then at Michael. A profound, weary sadness settled on her face. She loosened her grip. "Sophie, honey, this man, he's been looking for you for a very long time." The girl didn't move. She just stared at Michael with an ancient, searching look. Then slowly, she reached into the pocket of her jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it out to him. It was a drawing, a newer version of the sunflower cat, more detailed, the hand of a 10-year-old, but unmistakably the same. On the back, in a child's careful script, it said, "For my dad, wherever you are." Michael took it, his hands trembling so badly he could barely hold the paper. The dam broke. He wept openly, silently, the weight of 7 years pouring out of him. The reunion, when it finally happened, was not a movie scene. It was slow, fragile, and mediated by a child psychologist brought in by the state police. Lily, who had been Sophie for 70% of her life, was confused, scared, and emotionally overwhelmed. The first DNA test, rushed and definitive, confirmed what the drawing had already shouted. She was Lily Chen. Arthur Whitmore was arrested at his club that evening, charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, fraud, and a litany of other crimes. Roland Vick, facing a life sentence, cut a deal, providing a full confession that detailed Whitmore's orders and the cold, financial mechanics of the plot. But the real story was what came after, the aftermath. For Michael, it was the beginning of a different, more complex journey. He called Sarah. Hearing her scream of joy, then her wails of anguish and rage at her father, was a catharsis that shook them both. She was on the next flight. For Mara Wilson, there was no jail time. The prosecutors saw her for what she was, another of Vic's victims, a woman given a precious gift wrapped in a lie. She was granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. The bond she had with Lily was real, and that created a painful, necessary triangle. Lily needed time, and she needed both of them, the father who never stopped searching and the mother who raised her. The final, surprising detail emerged during the court proceedings. When a forensic child interviewer sat with Lily, using drawings to help her communicate, the girl produced another picture. It wasn't of a sunflower cat. It was of a man with a kind face standing in a diner looking at a refrigerator. She had drawn it from memory the moment her biological father saw her artwork for the first time in 7 years. She titled it The Look. She couldn't explain why she drew it, only that it was the moment her two worlds first collided. 1 year later, the rhythms are still being learned. Lily attends therapy twice a week. She sees Mara regularly under supervised, supportive conditions. Michael and Sarah are navigating a cautious, hopeful friendship, united by their daughter but forever changed by their separate hells. The sunflower cat drawing hangs in a frame in Lily's new bedroom, between a photo of her as a toddler and one of her on her 11th birthday. Arthur Whitmore awaits trial in a cell, his fortune frozen, his legacy in ruins. 117 children found after a decade or more. Lily Chen is now one of them. The search that began with a desperate glance at a refrigerator door ended not with a single victory, but with the hard, ongoing work of healing. The missing piece was found, but the puzzle of a life interrupted has to be reassembled, one careful, loving piece at a time. So what does the story of Michael and Lily, of a sunflower cat on a fridge, really tell us about the 349,000 other names in the database? It tells us that the statistics are not just numbers. They are lives suspended, families living in two timelines. It tells us that the first 48 hours are critical, but that the search never truly ends, not for the parents and not for the professionals who are now using every tool we have, from genetic genealogy to forensic art, to turn long shots into reunions. Lily's case was cracked not by a massive break, but by a mundane, miraculous detail. A drawing. It underscores a terrifying and hopeful truth. In an age of digital surveillance and DNA databases, the clue that solves a decade-old mystery might still be analog. It might be a memory, a pattern, a piece of art stuck to a refrigerator with a strawberry magnet. It might be something only a parent would recognize. For every Arthur Whitmore using wealth to warp lives, there are 100 volunteers, detectives, and advocates like Garcia who refuse to let a file go cold. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children notes that technological advances are now responsible for solving cases once thought impossible. But technology doesn't run on its own. It runs on the fuel of relentless, stubborn hope. The hard truth is that recovery is just the beginning. The real work is the lifelong process of healing the trauma of a stolen childhood and mending the trust that was shattered. For Lily, now navigating life with 2 names and 2 families who love her, that work is daily. For Michael and Sarah, it's learning to parent a child who returned as a stranger. For Mara, it's living with the aftermath of a beautiful lie. Their story is a testament to the fact that love is not a finite resource. It can be a bridge between a past that was stolen and a future being rebuilt, piece by piece. If this story gripped you, if you believe in the power of a detail, of a drawing, of never giving up, then you understand what this channel is about. We dive into the human mysteries, the collisions of fate and choice, the moments where everything changes. Your engagement fuels this work. So hit that like button if you were rooting for Michael and Lily. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that hope is a verb. And subscribe because every week we bring you another deep dive into the stories that remind us how fragile and how resilient our lives really are. Thank you for watching. Until next time.